Picture yourself standing at the edge of what seems like an impossible situation. That heavy weight on your shoulders, that mountain that appears too high to climb, that door that just won't seem to open. We have all been there, have not we? But let me tell you something profound. Something that has shaped my entire understanding of life and the universe. God does not give you the map. He gives you a compass. In this very moment, as you are listening to these words, the divine intelligence that created the entire universe is working through you and for you. The same force that causes flowers to bloom in spring, that keeps planets in their orbits, that turns tiny seeds into mighty oak trees. That same intelligence is orchestrating your path. I want you to take a deep breath. Feel that. That is not just air filling your lungs. That is life force itself flowing through you. The same energy that illuminates the stars is breathing life into you right now. How magnificent is that? Let me share something personal with you. Back in the 1970s, when I was struggling as a young counselor, living in a small apartment, barely making ends meet, I had a profound realization. I was sitting on my bed, worried about bills, about my future, about everything really, and then it hit me. Worry is simply using your imagination to create something you do not want. What if, instead of worrying about how things will work out, we trusted that they will? What if, instead of asking, why is this happening to me, we ask, what is this teaching me? God does not just make a way. He is the way. Every challenge you are facing right now is not a roadblock. It is a setup for a miracle. Every closed door is not a rejection. It is a redirection. Every setback is not a failure. It is a setup for a comeback. Let me tell you about Sarah, a woman I met during one of my seminars in 2014. She had lost her job, her savings were depleting, and she was raising 3 kids alone. She told me, I do not see a way out. I looked her in the eyes and said, the fact that you do not see a way does not mean there is not one. 2 months later, she wrote to me, through a series of what some might call coincidences, but I call divine appointments. She found not just a job, but her calling. A random conversation at a coffee shop led to a partnership that allowed her to start her own business, doing what she had always dreamed of. That is how God works. He does not always show you the entire staircase, but He'll illuminate the next step. Think about Moses at the Red Sea. There he was with an entire nation behind him, the Egyptian army closing in and what appeared to be no way out. But God did not give Moses the solution until he needed it. Sometimes that is exactly where you need to be, at your Red Sea moment, to witness your miracle. You are not reading these words by accident. Your presence here in this moment is divinely orchestrated. The universe, God's magnificent creation, operates on perfect timing. Just look at nature. A butterfly emerges from its cocoon at exactly too early, and its wings won't be strong enough. Too late, and it won't survive. Your timing is just as perfect. Your struggles, your waiting period, your season of uncertainty, it is all part of your emergence story. I want you to do something right now. Close your eyes for a moment. Think about your biggest worry, your most pressing problem. Got it? Now imagine handing it over to the divine intelligence that orchestrates the entire universe. Feel the weight lifting off your shoulders. Most of us have been conditioned to believe that we need to figure everything out ourselves. We've been taught that struggle equals worthiness. But that is not how the universe operates. Look at nature. Does a flower struggle to bloom? Does a river struggle to flow? No. They simply align themselves with the natural flow of life. God's will for your life is greater than any circumstance you are facing right now. Your current situation is not your final destination. It is merely a chapter in your story, and like any good story, it has its tensions and conflicts before the resolution. Let me share another powerful principle with you. Everything in the universe operates on vibration and attraction. Your thoughts, your beliefs, your expectations, they are all sending out vibrations into the universe. When you truly believe that God will make a way, when you align your thoughts with this truth, you begin to attract the very circumstances that will make it happen. I remember a young man I met in Detroit back in 2013. He had a dream of starting a program to help underprivileged youth learn computer programming. He had no money, no connections, just a burning desire to make a difference. Everyone told him it was impossible, but he held on to his faith. He kept saying, God will make a way. Within 6 months, he had partnered with 3 local businesses, secured a space for free, and had volunteers offering to teach. Today, that program has helped hundreds of young people change their lives. That is the power of unwavering faith combined with inspired action. Notice I said inspired action, not desperate action. There is a big difference. Desperate action comes from fear. Inspired action comes from fear. You might be thinking, but what about when things do not work out the way we want them to? That is where trust comes in. Sometimes God's no is actually a greater yes. Sometimes that closed door is protecting you from walking down the wrong path. I learned this lesson profoundly in my own life. In the early 1980s, I was devastated when a major publishing deal fell through. It seemed like my dreams were crumbling. But that supposed failure led me to write Your Erroneous, which went on to become one of the best-selling books of all time. God did not just make a way, He made a better way than I could have imagined. God's ways are higher than our ways. His thoughts are higher than our thoughts. When you are climbing a mountain, you can only see a few feet ahead of you. But from above, the entire path is visible. God sees your entire journey, past, present, and future, all at once. Think about Joseph in the Bible, sold into slavery by his own brothers, imprisoned for years on false charges. It seemed like his life was a series of unfair tragedies. But every setback was actually a setup for his comeback. Every pit he fell into was actually a tunnel leading to his purpose. God wasn't just making a way, He was making Joseph ready for the way. The same is true for you. Your challenges aren't punishments. They're preparation. Your obstacles are not dead ends. They're detours to something better. Your delays aren't denials. They're divine timing in action. Let me share with you 4 powerful principles that I've learned about how God makes a way. First, He often works in unexpected ways. Do not limit God by your own imagination. The solution you are seeking might come from a direction you never anticipated. Stay open to possibilities. Second, He works through people. That random conversation, that expected phone call, that new connection. These aren't coincidences. They're divine appointments. Stay alert to these connections. Third, He works through your talents and gifts. You've been divinely equipped with everything you need for your journey. Your abilities, your experiences, even your struggles, they're all part of your equipment. Fourth, He works through time. Sometimes what looks like a delay is actually perfect timing. Trust the process. Trust the journey. Success is not about making things happen. It is about allowing things to happen. It is about aligning yourself with the divine flow of life. When you are in alignment, miracles become natural occurrences. I want you to understand something, pro-fags. You are not your circumstances. You are not your bank account. You are not your job title. You are not your past mistakes. You are a spiritual being having a human experience. You are connected to the source of all creation. You have access to infinite intelligence and infinite possibilities. Think about that for a moment. The same power that created galaxies lives within you. The same intelligence that designs snowflakes, each one unique, is available to guide your path. The same love that keeps the universe in perfect harmony is working to bring harmony to your life. But here's the key. You must trust the process. Trust does not mean sitting idle. Trust means taking inspired action while leaving the results to God. Trust means knowing that even when things do not make sense, there is a greater. Let me share a technique. I've taught thousands of people over the years. I call it the God's Way visualization. Every morning, before you start your day, take 5 minutes to visualize yourself surrounded by divine light. See this light filling every cell of your body, every circumstance of your life. Then simply say these words, God, I trust your way. Show me the path and I will follow. This simple practice can transform your entire day. It shifts your energy from worry to trust, from fear to faith, from resistance to acceptance. Most of our stress comes from trying to control outcomes. We want to know how everything will work out. We want guarantees, but life does not work that way. The journey of faith is about trusting without seeing, believing without knowing how. You remember the story of David and Goliath? David did not defeat Goliath because he was stronger or better equipped. He won because he knew God would make a way. While others saw a giant too big to fight, David saw a target too big. What giant are you facing today? What seems impossible in your life right now? Remember, the size of your problem is nothing compared to the size of your God. I want to share something powerful with you. Every great achievement in human history started with someone believing in the invisible. The Wright brothers believed in flight before planes existed. Edison believed in light before the bulb was created. Your belief in God's ability to make a way is just as powerful. Here's a truth that has transformed countless lives. Your current reality is not your permanent reality. Just as seasons change, just as night turns to day, your situation can and will change. But you must stay in faith. You must keep your thoughts aligned with possibility, not limitation. Think about a time in your past when you thought you wouldn't make it through. Yet here you are. God made a way then, did not he? He'll make a way now too. That is his nature. That is his promise. I want you to start seeing your challenges differently. Instead of seeing them as obstacles, see them as opportunities. Instead of seeing them as problems, see them as possibilities. Instead of seeing them as burdens, see them as blessings and every difficulty you face is developing something in you. It is building your character, strengthening your faith, preparing you for your next level. Nothing is wasted in God's economy. Every tear, every disappointment, every setback is being woven into a tapestry of triumph. Let me tell you about time I spent with a group of indigenous people in Peru back in 2012. They taught me something profound about trusting the divine path. When they walk through the dense jungle at night, they do not carry big flashlights to illuminate the entire path. They carry small lights that show just the next step. That is often how God works, showing us just enough light for the next step. You do not need to see the entire path to take the next step. You do not need to have all the answers to move forward. You just need to trust that the same God who brought you to this point will lead you through it. I want you to make a decision right now. Decide that you are going to trust God's way more than your own understanding. Decide that you are going to look for the opportunity in every difficulty. Decide that you are going to expect miracles. Remember, miracles are not contrary to nature. They're only contrary to what we know about nature. The same is true about God's ways. They might not make sense to our limited understanding, but they're perfect in their design and timing. We come to the close of our time together. I want to leave you with this thought. God is not just the way maker. He's your way maker. He's not just working things out. He's working things out for your good. He's not just opening doors. He's opening the right doors at the right time. Your job is not to figure it all out. Your job is to trust, to stay in faith, to keep moving forward, to keep your thoughts aligned with possibility, to keep your heart open to miracles. Remember, when it seems there is no way, God will make a way. When the path seems unclear, God will make a way. When the odds seem stacked against you, God will make a way. This is not just positive thinking, it is divine truth. You're not alone on this journey. You are not forgotten in your struggles. You are not abandoned in your trials. The same God who parted the Red Sea, who brought down the walls of Jericho, who turned water into wine, like that same God is working in your life right now. Hold on, keep believing. Stay in faith. Your breakthrough is coming. Your miracle is on the way. God is making a way for you right now, even if you can't see it yet. And remember, as you leave this place today, you are not walking away with just inspiration. You are walking away with divine truth that can transform your life. Let every step you take be a step of faith. Every thought you think be a thought of trust, and every word you speak be a word of possibility. Because God will make a way for you, not might, not could, not should, but will. That is his promise, and his promises never fail. You know, I am reminded of a beautiful metaphor I witnessed while visiting the Grand Canyon in 2011. I watched as the Colorado River continuously flowed, carving its path through seemingly impenetrable rock. That river did not stop when it encountered obstacles. It simply found another way around. Sometimes it went over, sometimes under, sometimes through, but it always continued its journey. That is exactly how God works in your life. Consider the humble bamboo plant. For the first 4 years after planting, nothing appears to happen above ground. But beneath the surface, an incredible root system is being established. Then, the 5th year, the bamboo shoot suddenly grows up to 90 feet in just 6 weeks. Sometimes when it seems like nothing is happening in your life, God is actually building your foundation, strengthening your roots. I met a musician in Chicago back in 2010 who shared something remarkable with me. He had been playing violin since age 5, dreaming of joining a prestigious orchestra. After 20 years of dedication, he was rejected from every major orchestra he auditioned for. But instead of giving up, he started teaching music to children with disabilities. Today, he runs one of the most successful music therapy programs in the country. You see, God's way wasn't about his performance career. It was about healing others through music. Let me tell you about the principle of divine redirection. In quantum physics, there is something called the observer effect. The mere act of observing something changes its behavior. Similarly, when you begin to observe God's hand in your life, you start noticing the subtle signs, the gentle nudges, the divine coincidences that are guiding you toward your destiny. Think about a tapestry being woven. From underneath, it looks like chaos, loose threads, knots, seemingly random patterns, but from above, a beautiful picture emerges. Right now, you might be looking at your life from underneath the tapestry. God sees the completed masterpiece. I remember counseling a couple in 2008 who had lost their home in a devastating fire. They were angry, questioning why God would allow such tragedy. 6 months later, they discovered that the building had serious structural issues that could have collapsed at any time. What seemed like destruction was actually protection. God's way often involves removing what's unsafe to build something unshakable. In nature, everything has its season. A fruit picked too early is bitter. Too late, it is rotten. The same goes for opportunities in your life. Trust that if something is not happening right now, it is because you are in your growing season. Have you ever watched a master potter at work? I spent time with one in New Mexico in 2013. He showed me how he does not just shape the clay from the outside. He also applies pressure from the inside. That is often how God works. While circumstances shape you from the outside, his spirit works from within, creating something beautiful and useful. Consider the process of gold refinement. The metal must be heated to extreme temperatures to remove impurities. During this process, the refiners of old would sit and watch the molten gold until they could see their reflection in it. That is what God is doing in your life. Heating, purifying, refining until his image is clearly reflected in you. In my counseling practice during the early 1990s, I noticed something fascinating. The clients who made the most progress weren't necessarily those who had the easiest circumstances. They were the ones who understood that their difficulties were developing their character. They saw God's hand even in their hardships. Let me share what I call the divine GPS principle. When you take a wrong turn with a GPS, it does not scold you or give up. It simply says recalculating and finds a new route. God's guidance works the same way. There is no mistake too big for him to recalculate your route toward your destiny. Your life is like a book being written by the greatest author of all time. Every chapter serves a purpose, even the difficult ones. The plot twists, the suspense, the moments of conflict. They're all crafting a story more beautiful than anything you could write for yourself. I want you to understand something profound about divine provision. Notice how a small seed does not need to stress about becoming a tree. It simply needs to be planted in the right soil and remain. Your job is not to force your dreams into existence. It is to stay planted in faith, rooted in trust, and open to God's nurturing process. Remember this: the size of your miracle is determined by the size of your problem. Those impossible situations you are facing, they're setting the stage for God to display his power in your life. The bigger the challenge, the greater the testimony. In all my years of teaching and counseling, I've never seen God fail to make a way. I've seen him change the circumstances strengthen the person or reveal a completely new path. But he always makes a way. There's a fascinating phenomenon in aerospace engineering called atmospheric reentry. When a spacecraft returns to Earth, it must pass through a period of intense heat and pressure. During this time, communication with the craft is temporarily lost in what's called a blackout period. I witnessed this process during a NASA visit in 2014, and it struck me as a perfect metaphor for our spiritual journeys. Sometimes when the heat is most intense in your life, when it seems like even God's voice is silent, you are not falling, you are actually on your way to a safe landing. I once met an elderly watchmaker in Switzerland who shared a profound insight. He told me, "Every watch I make has hundreds of tiny pieces. If even one is out of place, the whole mechanism fails." Then he smiled and added, "But the most important part is not any of the pieces. It is the space between them. This is how God orchestrates your life. The spaces between events, the waiting periods, the silent moments, the apparent delays are just as crucial as the events themselves." During my research for a book in 2005, I studied the migratory patterns of Arctic terns. These remarkable birds fly from the Arctic to the Antarctic and back every year, the longest migration in the animal kingdom. What fascinated me was that they never worry about the length of the journey or the storms they might encounter. They simply spread their wings and trust the wind currents that God provided. Your journey might seem long, but like the Arctic tern, you are equipped for every mile. Consider the principle of divine momentum. In physics, objects in motion tend to stay in motion. The same is true in your spiritual journey. When you take that first step of faith, when you make that initial move toward your God-given purpose, you create spiritual momentum that heaven itself gets behind. I worked with a painter in Santa Fe in 2007 who taught me something beautiful about perspective. She would often step back 20 feet from her canvas, squint her eyes, and look at her work from a distance. Sometimes she said, "You need to step back to see the whole picture. When you are too close to your problems, everything looks like a mistake. But step back, look through God's eyes, and you'll see how every stroke fits into the masterpiece of your life." Have you ever noticed how a diamond is formed? It requires three things: carbon, intense pressure, and time. The very pressures you are facing today are transforming you from coal into a diamond. God is not just making a way through your pressure. He's using that pressure to increase your value. Back in my university days, I had a professor who studied the Dead Sea. He explained how it is called dead because it has no outlet. It only takes in water but never gives out. This teaches us something vital about God's way. When He makes a way for you, it is never just for you. Your breakthrough is meant to flow through you to others. In 1995, I visited a violin maker's workshop in Italy. He showed me how he would tap different parts of the wood and listen carefully to its resonance before carving. "The wood tells me where to cut," he said. "I just listen and follow." That is often how God guides us, through gentle taps, subtle vibrations, quiet whispers that we can only hear when we're truly listening. There is a principle in sailing called tacking. When the wind is blowing against you, you can still move forward by zigzagging back and forth. Sometimes, what feels like opposition in your life is actually God teaching you to tack, to use the contrary winds to propel you forward in a more skillful way. Let me share what I call the divine echo principle. Mountain climbers know that you never shout in snow-covered mountains. The echo could trigger an avalanche. Similarly, what you speak into your situation creates echoes. When you declare God will make a way, you are not just making a statement. You are creating ripples in the spiritual atmosphere. I studied the process of metamorphosis in 2013 with a butterfly researcher. He revealed that inside the chrysalis, the caterpillar does not just grow wings, it completely dissolves before reforming into a butterfly. Sometimes what feels like your life falling apart is actually God reforming you into something more beautiful. When I visited the ancient caves in France, I noticed how the stalactites form, one drop at a time over thousands of years. Each drop seems insignificant, but over time, they create magnificent structures. God often works the same way in our lives as through daily drops of grace, seemingly small blessings that accumulate into stunning testimonies. The Japanese art of kintsugi takes broken pottery and repairs it with gold, making the piece more valuable than it was before. God does not just fix what's broken in your life. He transforms your breaks into your most beautiful features. Your scars become your stars. Your wounds become your wisdom. During my time studying healing practices in 2009, I learned about how bones actually become stronger at the point where they were once broken. The same principle applies to your spirit. The very places where life has broken, you will become your points of greatest strength when God heals you. Agriculture, the richest soil, is often found in valleys, not on mountaintops. When you are in a valley season of your life, you are actually standing in soil that is rich with potential for growth. God is not just making a way out of your valley. He's using your valley to enrich your life.